A racist man attempts to kick a black lady out of her own house. But he could only imagine that her sibling would be the city's mayor. Her breath catches as the man's voice slices through the humid air, sharp and venomous, his words dripping with contempt. "You don't belong here," he snarls, his broad frame looming in the doorway of the elegant Victorian house, its crimson paint peeling like old blood under the late afternoon sun. She stands firm, her bare feet rooted to the polished oak floor, the silk of her robe whispering against her skin as she clutches the edge of the door. Her eyes, dark and unyielding, meet his. Blue, cold, and simmering with a hatred she can taste. "Get out, now," he barks, stepping closer, his work boots thudding against the threshold, his chest heaving with the audacity of a man who believes he owns the world. "This ain't your house. I know who lives here, and it sure as hell ain't you." His lips curl into a sneer, and she feels the heat of his breath, sour with beer and bile, as he leans in, his finger jabbing the air inches from her face. "You're trespassing, and I'll drag you out myself if I have to." She doesn't flinch. Instead, a slow, dangerous smile curves her lips, and her voice, when it comes, is low and sultry, laced with a threat he doesn't yet understand. "You're going to regret this," she says, her words coiling around him like smoke. "My sister's the mayor, and when she hears about this, you'll lose everything. Your job, your pride, all of it." His laughter erupts, harsh and jagged, filling the space between them, but there's a flicker of unease in his eyes, a crack in his bravado. "You're bluffing," he spits, though his hands clench into fists, betraying the doubt creeping in. She steps closer, her scent, jasmine and defiance, flooding his senses, and whispers, "Try me." The air crackles with tension, thick and electric, as the standoff teeters on the edge of violence, passion and ruin. For a moment they stand there, locked in a silent war, the world narrowing to the space between their bodies. The air hums with the weight of unspoken words, thick with the scent of sweat and magnolias, the Georgia heat pressing down like a living thing. Then he lunges, his hand reaching for her arm, fingers splayed with intent, and she twists away, her robe slipping to reveal the curve of her shoulder, her skin glistening under the harsh afternoon sun. "Don't touch me," she hisses, her voice a blade slicing through the stillness, and he freezes, caught in the intensity of her gaze, dark, unyielding, a storm brewing behind her eyes. His breath catches, his pulse hammering in his ears, and for a heartbeat, neither move. The sound of a car rumbling down the street breaks the spell, its engine a low growl that reverberates through the cracked pavement of Crimson Lane. He steps back, his chest heaving, his mind racing with consequences he can't yet fathom, anger, shame, and something sharper he refuses to name. She shices him, her heart pounding against her ribs, her body coiled with adrenaline. Knowing this is only the beginning of a battle, neither of them can walk away from unscathed. The story doesn't begin here, though. It starts days earlier, under a sky heavy with the promise of rain, the clouds hanging low over Willow Creek like a shroud. That's when the man first set eyes on the house on Crimson Lane, its silhouette rising from the overgrown lot like a ghost from the past. His name is Darren Holt, a 38-year-old contractor with calloused hands that tell stories of labor and loss, and a chip on his shoulder the size of the town itself. He's lived in Willow Creek all his life, a place where the streets are narrow and the grudges are wide, where the past clings to the present like damp moss on a rotting log. The town is a patchwork of sagging porches, faded storefronts, and rusted pickup trucks, its people bound by a shared history of hard times and harder attitudes. Darren's a man of simple beliefs, forged in the fire of a childhood spent watching his father, Earl Holt, lose everything. Job, home, dignity to what Earl called outsiders taking what's ours. Those lessons stuck, hardening into a worldview that sees threat in anyone who doesn't look like him, talk like him, live like him, a lens tinted by bitterness and fear, passed down like a family heirloom. Darren's father had been a mill worker, a broad-shouldered man with a laugh that could fill a room until the mill closed in '92, shuttered by a faceless corporation from up north. Earl blamed the layoffs on immigrants, on city folk, on anyone who wasn't born and bred in Willow Creek, and he spent his final years drinking himself into a grave while preaching his gospel of resentment to a young Darren. "They come in, take our jobs, our land, our women," Earl would slur, his voice thick with whiskey and regret. "You watch out, boy. You hold what's yours. Darren had watched, had held on, but it hadn't saved his father from the bottle or the foreclosure that left them sleeping in a borrowed trailer. Now, decades later, Darren carries that weight in his bones, in the way he squares his shoulders against the world, in the way he grips his hammer like it's a weapon. The house on Crimson Lane has been empty for months. Or so he thinks. He's been hired to fix the sagging porch. A job he took because the pay's good, cash under the table, nose asked, and the owner's some rich absentee who doesn't care enough to check in. Darren likes the solitude of it, hammering nails, sanding wood, sweating out his frustrations under the relentless Georgia sun. The house is a beauty, all gables and stained glass, its wraparound porch framed by peeling white columns that hint at a grandeur, long faded. But it's the kind of beauty that makes him uneasy. Like it's mocking him with its elegance, its quiet insistence on a life he's never known. He doesn't belong in a place like this, and he knows it. His boots are too worn, his hands too rough, his anger too raw. But he's here, day after day, his truck parked crooked in the overgrown driveway, its bed littered with tools and empty beer cans, his equipment scattered across the porch like offerings to a god he doesn't worship. The work is steady, methodical, a rhythm he can lose himself in. He starts early, before the heat turns brutal, the sky still streaked with pink and gold as he unloads his saws and levels. The porch groans under his weight, its boards warped from years of neglect, and he takes a grim satisfaction in tearing them up, ripping out the rot to make way for something solid. He's good at this, fixing what's broken, shaping chaos into order, and it's the one thing he's never doubted about himself. By noon, the sun is a hammer pounding down, and he strips off his shirt, letting the sweat run in rivulets down his back, pooling at the waistband of his jeans. The cicadas drone in the trees, a relentless chorus that drowns out the world beyond Crimson Lane, and for a while it's just him and the house, a silent pact between man and structure. She arrives on a Tuesday, though Darren doesn't know her name yet. He's on the porch, shirtless, his skin prickling with heat, when the sleek black car pulls up, a late-model Audi, its polish stark against the dust of the lane. The door opens, and out steps a woman, tall, poised, her skin a rich mahogany that catches the light like polished stone. She's wearing sunglasses that hide her eyes, a wide-brimmed hat that casts a shadow over her face, and a dress that clings to her curves in a way that makes Darren's mouth go dry before he remembers himself. Before the old instincts kick in, he watches her stride up the walk, her heels clicking against the cracked stone with a precision that feels foreign here, a leather bag slung over her shoulder like a badge of somewhere else. She doesn't glance at him, doesn't acknowledge his existence as she unlocks the front door with a key that glints in the sun, and that stings more than it should. Her indifference a quiet rebuke to his presence. "Who's this?" he mutters to himself, wiping his brow with the back of his hand, his eyes narrowing as she disappears inside. The door closing with a soft thud, he stands there, hammer dangling from his grip, the heat pressing against his temples, and feels the first stirrings of something he can't name, curiosity, maybe, or the faint edge of resentment. He doesn't approach her that day. He tells himself it's because he's busy, because the porch won't fix itself, but the truth is murkier. A tangle of pride and unease. There's something about her, her confidence, her elegance, the way she moves like she owns the air itself, that sets his teeth on edge. She doesn't fit here. Not in this town, not in this house, and the mismatch gnaws at him, a splinter under his skin. By Wednesday, he's convinced himself she's a squatter, some city type who stumbled into a place she doesn't belong. He's seen it before, people moving in, taking over, acting like they own what's never been theirs. His father's voice echoes in his head, sharp and slurred. They come in, and we're the ones who pay. He spends the day watching her from the corner of his eye, catching glimpses through the windows as she moves inside, unpacking boxes, arranging things he can't make out, her silhouette a shadow against the stained glass. She leaves the windows open, and sometimes her voice drifts out, low and melodic, talking to someone on the phone in a language he doesn't understand. It's not Spanish, not anything he knows, and that only deepens his suspicion. By Thursday, his unease festers into certainty, a narrative taking shape in his mind. She's an intruder, a thief, and he's the only one who sees it. He decides to confront her, to take back what's his, or what he thinks should be. Her name is Lena Carver, though Darren won't learn that until later. She's 34, a photographer who spent the last decade chasing light across continents. Paris, Cape Town, Havana, capturing faces and moments that tell stories words can't. Her portfolio is a tapestry of humanity. A child's grin in a Moroccan market, a widow's tears in a Cuban alley, the quiet dignity of a fisherman against a French dawn. The house on Crimson Lane belongs to her. Inherited from an aunt she barely knew, a woman named Esther who'd lived here alone for decades until cancer took her 6 months ago. Esther's death left behind more questions than answers. A will scribbled on yellowed paper. A house full of locked rooms. A legacy Lena's only beginning to unravel. She's come here to escape, to breathe, to figure out what comes next after a breakup that shattered her like glass, leaving her raw and restless in a loft in Atlanta she couldn't bear to stay in. Lena's ex, Javier, had been a painter, a man of wild passion and wilder tempers, whose art consumed him until there was nothing left for her. Their last fight had been a storm of hurled insults and broken frames, ending with him storming out and her sobbing into the silence. She'd packed her cameras and left the next day, the house on Crimson Lane, a lifeline she hadn't known she needed. It's her refuge now, its walls steeped in a history she feels in the creak of the floors, the faint scent of lavender that lingers in the air. She doesn't know Willow Creek, doesn't know its rhythms or its resentments, and she doesn't care to. She's here for herself, not for them, and the town's smallness, its watchful eyes mean nothing to her. The first time she sees Darren, she barely registers him. He's just a shape in the heat, a man with a hammer and a scowl, someone her aunt must have hired before she passed. Lena Sue caught up in her own world, unpacking boxes of lenses and film, arranging her cameras on a table in the parlor, losing herself in the soft click of shutters as she tests the light through the windows, to notice the way he watches her. His gaze heavy with something she doesn't yet recognize. She spends her days barefoot, moving through the house in a haze of memory and possibility, her robes slipping off her shoulders as she works late into the night, the summer air thick against her skin. She leaves the windows open, letting the breeze carry in the scent of magnolias and the distant hum of cicadas, a soundtrack to her solitude. She feels alive here, free in a way she hasn't in years, the house wrapping around her like a second skin. But Darren sees something else. He sees an intruder, a threat, a woman who doesn't belong. His anger builds with every glimpse of her. Her silhouette in the window, her laughter drifting out to the porch, the way she moves like the house is hers, like she's always been here. He starts to notice details, the expensive car, the way she carries herself, the faint accent he can't place, something urban polished, not of Willow Creek. By Friday, he's had enough. He waits until the afternoon when the heat is at its peak, and the town is drowsy, the streets empty save for the shimmer of mirages on the asphalt. He marches up to the door, his boots loud against the porch he's spent days repairing, and doesn't knock. He pounds, his fist rattling the frame, the sound echoing through the house like a declaration of war. She opens the door, and he's struck again by her presence. Her robe barely tied, her hair spilling over her shoulders in loose waves, her skin glowing with the day's heat. "You don't belong here," he says, his voice a growl, his body filling the doorway, broad and unyielding. She stands there, unafraid, her eyes narrowing as she takes him in, his sweat-stained jeans, his clenched fists, the fury radiating from him like heat off pavement. "This ain't your house," he continues, his certainty unshaken, his words spilling out in a rush. "I know who lives here, and it's not you." She tilts her head, studying him, and he feels exposed under her gaze, like she's peeling back layers he didn't know he had. Anger, yes, but beneath it something fragile, something he's buried deep. "You're trespassing," he adds, stepping closer, his boots scuffing the threshold. "Get out, or I'll make you." Her response is a shock of cold water on his fire. "This is my house," she says, her voice smooth and steady, cutting through his bluster like a knife through silk. "And you're the one who doesn't belong." He laughs, a harsh, barking sound, because the idea is absurd, impossible. "Prove it," he challenges, crossing his arms, his muscles flexing under his sunburned skin, a show of strength he hopes will intimidate her. She doesn't move, doesn't reach for papers or keys. Instead, she steps closer, her eyes locked on his, and says, "My sister's the mayor. You touch me, you threaten me, and you'll lose everything. Your job, your life here, it'll all be gone." The words hit him like a slap, sharp and stinging, but he doesn't believe her. Not yet. Bullshit, he snaps, though his pulse quickens, a flicker of doubt creeping in. You're lying, she smiles then, slow and deliberate. And it's the smile of a woman who knows she holds the winning hand, who's played this game before and won. Try me, she says, and the challenge hangs between them, heavy and dangerous, a dare he's not sure he can meet. He wants to grab her, to prove his point, to wipe that smile off her face, but something in her eyes stops him. Something fierce, something real, a fire that mirrors his own but burns cleaner, brighter. He steps back, his mind spinning, and that's when the car rolls by. Its engine a low growl that pulls him out of the moment, grounding him in the reality of what he's just done. Darren stumbles back to his truck, his hands shaking as he fumbles with the door, his thoughts a tangle of rage and doubt. He doesn't know who she is, doesn't know if she's telling the truth, but the seed of fear has been planted, rooting deep in the soil of his insecurities. He drives home, the radio blaring static, the familiar streets of Willow Creek blurring past the diner where he eats alone most nights, past the bar where he drinks with men who nod at his rants, but never ask questions, past the trailer park where he's lived since his father died. His home is a single wide, its aluminum siding dented and peeling, the porch a rickety affair he's never bothered to fix. Inside it's a mess of empty bottles and unwashed dishes, a testament to a life lived in limbo. He spends the night pacing the cramped space, replaying her words, "My sister's the mayor," and trying to fit them into what he knows of this town. Willow Creek's mayor is Camille Carver, a name that carries weight even for someone like Darren, who avoids politics like it's a disease. She's a woman he's never met but whose face he's seen on campaign signs. Sharp cheekbones, short hair, eyes that seem to see through you. She's black, ambitious, a lawyer who swept into office 2 years ago on promises of change that Darren dismissed as noise. He's heard the rumors, she's tough, ruthless, doesn't tolerate fools. Could she be this woman's sister? The idea gnaws at him, keeps him awake until dawn, the cicadas outside his window a mocking chorus to his restless mind. He doesn't know Lena's name yet, doesn't know the deed in her hand, but he knows Camille's reputation, and it's enough to make him question everything. Lena, meanwhile, stands in the doorway long after he's gone, her heart racing, her body alive with adrenaline. She's not afraid of him, not really, but she's angry, angrier than she's been in years. She came here for peace, for solitude, and now this man, this stranger, has invaded her space, her sanctuary, with his hate and his assumptions, his entitlement dripping like sweat from his brow. She closes the door, locks it, and leans against it, her breath steadying as she lets the anger settle into something useful, something sharp. She thinks of calling Camille, her older sister, the one who's always been the protector, the fighter, the one who'd once punched a boy in the face for pulling Lena's hair in 3rd grade. They haven't spoken in weeks, not since Lena left Atlanta, a rift born of stubborn silence and unspoken hurts. But she knows Camille would burn the world down for her. She decides to wait, to see what Darren does next, but she's already plotting, her mind as sharp as her camera's lens, mapping out the angles of this new fight. The next morning, Darren returns. He can't stay away. He tells himself it's about the job, about finishing the porch, but it's more than that. He needs to know, needs to win, needs to reclaim the ground he lost. The sun is just rising, painting the house in soft gold. When he pulls up, his truck rattling over the uneven drive, he knocks this time, softer, a concession he doesn't fully understand, and when Lena answers, she's dressed. A sundress that hugs her hips, her hair pulled back in a tight bun, her expression unreadable behind those sunglasses. "What do you want?" she asks, her tone cool, distant, like she's already dismissed him. "I'm working," he says, gesturing to the porch, but his eyes betray him, darting to her face, her body searching for weakness, for a crack in her armor. "You didn't prove it," he adds, his voice rough, clinging to the defiance that's carried him this far. "Show me this is your house." She considers him for a long moment, her silence a weapon, then steps aside, letting him in. The house smells of her jasmine, from a candle on the mantel, coffee brewing in the kitchen, the vague tang of developer fluid from a dark room she's set up in a back room. She leads him to a table in the parlor, cluttered with papers and camera equipment, and pulls out a deed, shoving it under his nose with a flick of her wrist. "Leno, Carver, it reads. Her name in crisp black ink, the date of transfer 6 months ago, the signature of Esther Carver, unmistakable. He stares at it, his jaw tightening, his fingers itching to tear it up, but he knows he can't. Could be fake, he mutters, grasping at straws, and she laughs, a sound that cuts deeper than he expects, sharp and unafraid. You're pathetic, she says, stepping closer, her heat mingling with his, her breath warm against his face. You can't stand it, can you? That I'm here, that I belong. He wants to argue, wants to push back, wants to shout that she's wrong, that this town, this house, this life isn't hers to claim. But her proximity disarms him. She's too close, too real, her scent and her strength overwhelming the space between them. He feels something shift, anger, twisting into something darker, something he doesn't want to name. A heat that's not just rage, but something primal, forbidden. Get out, she says, her voice a command, low and final. And this time he listens, retreating to the porch, his pride in tatters, his hands clenched into fists he doesn't know what to do with. For the next few days, Darren works in silence, his hammer striking nails with a force that borders on violence. He avoids her, keeps his head down, but he can't stop watching, can't stop noticing the way she moves through the house, the way she sits on the porch at dusk with a glass of wine, the way her laughter spills out when she talks on the phone. He tells himself it's suspicion, that he's gathering evidence, but there's a part of him that knows better, a part he drowns in beer each night at Rusty's Tap, the bar where he's a fixture among the old-timers. Some woman squatting up on Crimson Lane, he tells them one night, his voice loud over the jukebox, testing the waters, thinks she owns the place. The men grunt, nod, but no one bites. No one cares enough to back him up, and that only fuels his isolation. Lana, meanwhile, settles into the house, her days a blur of photography and discovery. She finds a trunk in the attic, its lock rusted shut, and spends an afternoon prying it open with a crowbar she finds in the shed. Inside are letters, yellowed and brittle, written in her aunt's looping hand, letters to a lover named Grace, a woman Esther met in Savannah in the 70s, a secret life hidden from the town. The words are tender, aching, and they shift something in Lena, a connection to this place she hadn't expected. She starts photographing the house, capturing its shadows and angles, its history bleeding into her lens. She thinks of Darren sometimes, his anger a dark spot on her piece, but she pushes it aside, focusing on the light she came here to find. The lawsuit comes a week later, swift and merciless. Camille arrives in Willow Creek like a storm, her presence electric, her power undeniable. She's taller than Lena, broader, her hair cropped short and her eyes like steel, dressed in a tailored blazer that screams authority. She pulls up in a silver SUV, her heels clicking as she strides to the door, and the sisters embrace a fierce, wordless reunion that bridges the weeks of silence. They sit in the kitchen, the deeds spread out between them over cups of coffee, and Lena tells her everything. Darren's threats, his intrusion, the way he looked at her like she was less than nothing. Camille's response is immediate, her voice a promise. He's done. She calls her lawyer, Marcus Tate, a shark in a three-piece suit, who thrives on cases like this, small-town bigots brought low by their own hubris. Marcus arrives the next day, his briefcase stuffed with precedents, his grin wide and predatory. Within 48 hours, Darren served papers, harassment, racial discrimination, trespassing, delivered by a deputy who avoids his eyes. The town buzzes with it, whispers spreading like wildfire through the diner. The bar, the gas station where Darren fills his truck. Heard he picked a fight with the mayor's sister. Someone says over eggs at Millie's diner. Dumbass. Another replies, and the laughter stings worse than the summons. Darren loses the job first. The absentee owner, a distant cousin of Esther's named Paul, cuts him loose when Camille's name comes up in a terse phone call. Paul's not about to tangle with the mayor over a contractor he's never met. Then his buddies at Rusty's turn quiet, their eyes avoiding his, their conversations shifting when he walks in. He drinks more, fights more, picking brawls with men who don't care enough to hit back, but the anger's hollow now, replaced by a creeping dread that seeps into his dreams. He sees Lena's face, her smile, her deed, and wakes up sweating, the trailer closing in around him. The trial is swift, a public reckoning in a town that loves its scandals. It's held in the county courthouse, A brick building with a sagging roof and a gallery packed with curious locals, Lenny said, testifies. Her voice steady, her gaze fixed on Darren as she recounts his words. You don't belong here. Get out or I'll make you, and the way he loomed over her, his threat implicit in his size, his rage. She wears a simple dress, her hair loose, and there's a quiet power in her that fills the room. A contrast to Darren's hunched figure at the defendant's table. Camille sits in the gallery, a queen watching her kingdom, her presence a silent promise of retribution, and Darren feels the weight of her power, her sister's defiance, crushing him. Marcus tears into him on cross-examination, his questions sharp and relentless. Did you verify ownership before accusing Miss Carver? What gave you the right to enter her home? Do you deny your words were racially charged? Darren stumbles, his answers clipped and defensive. I thought she was a squatter. I didn't mean it like that, but the jury, a mix of townsfolk who've known him since he was a boy, doesn't buy it. They see the deed. Hear Lena's calm certainty, and sense the shift in the air, a reckoning for a man who's coasted on bluster too long. He's found guilty, fined $5,000, ordered to pay damages that wipe out his savings, money he'd scraped together from years of odd jobs, now gone in a signature. The aftermath is brutal. His reputation shredded, Darren becomes a ghost in Willow Creek, avoided, whispered about, a cautionary tale. He tries to find work, but no one hires him. The stain of the lawsuit clings like damp rot. He leaves a month later, his truck packed with what little he has left, a duffel of clothes, a toolbox, a case of beer, driving west toward Alabama, the house on Crimson Lane, a fading stain in his rearview mirror. He doesn't know where he's going, doesn't care, as long as it's away from here, from her, from the life he lost. Lena stays, her camera clicking again, capturing the light she came here to find. She develops the photos in her darkroom. Images of the house and its secrets emerging in trays of chemicals, Esther's letters, the porch Darren built, the magnolias bowing under their own weight. Camille visits often, their bond stronger than ever, the kitchen table a place of laughter and plans. They talk about fixing up the house, maybe opening it to artists one day, a retreat for people like Lena who need to heal. The house becomes theirs, a fortress, a victory, a home, its walls echoing with their voices, their strength. The story ends on a quiet evening. Months later, Lena alone on the porch. Darren built, her bare feet resting on the wood he sanded smooth. The air is cool now, the heat of summer fading into a crisp autumn, and she watches the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of crimson that match the lane's name. A glass of wine sits beside her, the bottle a gift from Camille, and the cicadas have given way to crickets, their song softer, more forgiving. She thinks of Darren sometimes, wonders where he's gone, what he's become, but the thought doesn't linger. It's a shadow passing over water, gone with the next ripple. She's free, and the house is hers, and that's enough. She picks up her camera, frames the sunset through the lens, and presses the shutter. The click is a small sound, but it carries everything, her past, her present, the future stretching out like the sky before her. She smiles, sets the camera down, and leans back, the porch creaking under her weight. Somewhere in the distance, a car rumbles down the street, but it doesn't break the spell. This time it's just noise.